Hello everyone and welcome to episode 63 of Overwatch This. I'm Matt, joined by Ben.
Hello.
And we are talking more Overwatch League again because we are not quite midway into this season, but...
but we've had the first week and you know, it did pretty well. And yeah, the only other bit of news is Blizzard World's going to hit the live servers next week on the 23rd. That's the Tuesday. They've released a nice little... kind of an image, and you can get like a ticket from the press site if you want one, and it's cute. That's coming out on the 23rd. That's expected to also ship with maybe some other changes, but we're not quite sure, you know, if we're going to get the balance changes with that, or if the Mercy and Junkrat changes will wait a little bit before those will go live. As we've spoken about, I think it was last week, we were talking about how that stuff won't hit the league until the end of the first stage, which will be another 5 weeks of competition. So from that perspective, they can wait 5 weeks if they want to, but obviously people actually playing the game on the live servers will want to get these changes as soon as possible because, you know, it's getting a bit stale with the old Mercy Junkrat matter. So that's what's going on with Blizzard World, and yeah, the Overwatch League's it's kicked off.
Let's kind of talk about some of the highlights. I want to talk about that opening kind of Spitfire game because that's the one I guess I was most invested in. As Spitfire is the team that I'm sort of following, and Christ, that first round, right? I wasn't expecting Mayhem to kind of do what they did, right?
And there's been surprises like that. The teams that you would expect to win have won the matches.
So Spitfire have gone on.
Yeah, Spitfire are 2-0, Seoul Dynasty are 2-0, New York Excelsior are 2-0, and then the Valiant is the other 2-0 team, which is maybe a little more of a surprise. And the only big surprise when it comes to that sort of stuff is Dallas Fuel are 0-2, but they have very hard matches, one against Valiant, one against the Dynasty. But yeah, like, you know, you're getting surprises like that where you know, Spitfire are losing maps and losing games to teams like Mayhem. People are taking rounds that you wouldn't expect. The rounds are a lot closer. Fuel versus Dynasty is, now I'm not a huge expert on Overwatch esports, but something that people have been saying one of the best matches of all time. And all of this basically just ties into the launch has been an incredible success. So the numbers were a lot higher than I think something we were predicting.
Well, I mean, we'd said something around like the 50k.
We were like, it'll definitely hit 50k. Maybe it'll get to 3 figures because it's, you know, opening day.
And it got to 3 figures and then tripled that.
Yeah, pretty much. So if you add up the Korean, the French, and the English stream, and so this doesn't count anyone watching on the app, anyone watching on the MLG site or the Overwatch League official site, and anyone watching in China, because we just basically don't know what they're doing. So this doesn't count any of those people, which could be another, you know, hundreds of thousands, depending on how popular it was in China. It was 427k, I think, which is at least 3 times what I was expecting it to be at generally. Now, it has dipped down from that. I didn't check the final day of games, but it was hovering around the kind of, once you added everything up, about 200k, a little bit higher when it peaked, and each region has different peaks. The Koreans tune into the Seoul Dynasty games, the Europeans tune into the Spitfire games, the Americans tune in more heavily when you know, the Dallas Fuel are playing or the LA Valiant are playing, and less people are interested in the Shanghai Dragons, at least in the numbers that we have access to. Obviously, they're probably a bit more popular in China, but they're also the weakest team, so, you know, how does that affect it? People are tuning in for more exciting games, but it's still, you know, it's maintaining a higher view count than the LCS does. Yeah, LCS has existed for 7 years or something at this point, so that's, you know, not a surprise, but it is started better than the purely numbers wise than I think.
Yeah, I think our fears about whether people would tune in because it was an awkward time of day and stuff like that, you know, completely unfounded. Clearly, like, Overwatch is popular, right? Like, we talk about how the game is sort of like, you know, kind of not dying out, but is dropping in figures and it's leaving.
It's no longer like, you know, the game it was a year ago, because no game is. That's just not how it works.
It is now left, it's the core, right? Like, the people that are always going to love Overwatch are the people that are watching and playing it now. But it turns out that they're way more enthusiastic than even we anticipated as people that literally present a show about Overwatch.
And it's hard to tell, you know, Overwatch player numbers. It's hard to tell invested player numbers because it's not on Steam. It's got all these console players as well. We don't know how many of those are tuning in to watch the Overwatch esports because that's all on PC as well. Presumably, there's eventually going to be some sort of decision that needs to be made. You know, should we have console esports as well? Like, you know, where does that audience sit, and are they interested in watching it on PC? That's a whole other thing that the Blizzard will need to decide and think about as the Overwatch League continues to develop. What they also did is, I mean, they gave themselves the best possible chance. The presentation was
phenomenal.
One of the best I've ever seen. It's not quite on the same level as like the World Championships for League of Legends because the amount of money and effort and time they pour into that stuff, and they've got announcements going on, and they've got these videos, these music videos that they make, and but it was on the level of like a CS:GO major, which is the bigger tournaments for that. It was in the same tier as the League of Legends World Championships and the International and the WCS at BlizzCon and that sort of thing.
And traditional sports, to be quite honest, it got certainly a lot of inspiration from there, and I think it carried it off as well as I've seen any major sports tournament.
They really pulled on the kind of NFL, the American sports angle when it comes to the stuff surrounding the actual broadcast. So there's a thing called Watch Point that they do. They sum up the last week. I was watching that last night. There's now a preview for week 2. That's presumably going to exist at least all the way through the first season. Then they'll reevaluate. But they've made kind of slightly characters out of their commentators. They're doing a lot of work with players where there's interviews and there's stuff like that.
Yeah, the mid-round kind of thing where they're just kind of like have the give us 3 facts about you. Where do you come from? What's your favourite snack? And stuff
exactly.
Like that.
And some of it's quite funny, but some of it's quite serious. They did. There was an Internet Hulk kind of a presentation where they talked about his life, and they were like, thanks to this guy, and that's the sort of thing that you want to see because that makes it so much more legitimate as this idea of a community and of a sport. And
it's more than just the game than it actually is. It's the sport of Overwatch.
Exactly, and their commentators have characters, but they're not overboard. They're not just taking the piss. It's just Monty supports the Korean teams and supports the good players, and some of the other guys are more about the American teams, and they want to see homegrown talent and that sort of thing do well. So there's a lot of potential there, and they're doing a really good job of just making these kind of quite friendly, easy to talk to faces. I think that they just did basically the best job they could have done. And things went off basically without a hitch, and they were rewarded by having pretty good games. There was a few sweeps, there was a few 4-0s, there was quite a few 3-1s as well. But if you actually watch the games were incredibly close. There was like 8-7s on some of the 2CP maps and things like that. And it was a small amount of luck, amplified by how much work they put in, and I'm really happy with it. I'm really glad to see that it's gone well. Obviously, people have been working on this for so long. It's great to see another esport be on that tier. Is that going to persist until the end of stage 3 in 18 weeks or whatever? Will that persist through into an all-star game? Will people care next year after they've had a 6-month break from it, or however long the break ends up being while they do run the World Cup? How is all of this stuff going to be affected by the changes to the game, and what people they're going to do with the competitive ladder and redesigning that? We don't know, but the start of it. Really good. I'm going to be invested. I'm at least going to, watch the 2 watch points each week. Probably try and catch the London Spitfire games when I can. It's not something I'm going to, I literally can't because of the time frame of trying to watch it from the UK and anywhere in Europe, really. But, I'm invested and I'm interested to see where it goes.
And that's it for this week's episode of Overwatch This, a slightly shorter episode than we normally do, and you should expect that going forward. We're kind of like revising the way that we do this show. We've got some other stuff to kind of tell you in the future, but basically expect on the weeks where there's not a huge amount going on in game, expect them to be shorter, and then we can sort of like divulge more when it comes to kind of like big patches, big PTR changes and stuff like that.
We'd rather talk about the Overwatch League now than try and cover like loads of tiny little bits of news, because we can talk about that stuff when it's relevant.
Yeah. But anyway, until next time, please like, subscribe, good luck to the teams that you're supporting, and have fun.